Welcome back, everyone, to an episode of the Steel Target Paint podcast. You know, Steve and I have made a commitment to get more of these out, and so we're doing this the following week from the last one. And hopefully everyone's enjoying what we talk about. And again, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, we're going to ignore them, but you're welcome to post them on the Steel Target Paint podcast Facebook page.
I was going to say, send the concerns to Jeff. All the other good stuff, send it to me.
And, you know, as always, is my partner in crime on this podcast, one of my best friends and a phenomenal shooter in person, Steve Foster. Steve, how you doing this morning?
Stop it, Jeff. I'm blushing. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's early Wednesday morning. Steve's driving into work. I got up early. This is a perfect time for us to spend some time talking about Steel Challenge shooting and everything that's going on in our environment. And with that, Steve, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things and get your perspective, and I'll add mine. This coming weekend is the Area 6 Steel Challenge Championships over at the Volusia County Gun and Hunt Club in New Smyrna Beach. What do you do to prepare for a major?
Well, the first thing I don't do is I don't switch a bunch of gear and guns and put new dots on and that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's what I don't. That's what I don't do.
Yep.
It's interesting, you know, as I lead up to a match like that, I do increase my frequency of shooting if I take a week off here or there. That's not the time for a major match, in my opinion. So leading up to at least the first, 4 or 5 days, if it's a world speed shoot, maybe it's 6 or 7 days, I try to get at least a couple 100 rounds downrange. And I also try to rotate through every stage so it's somewhat fresh in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that, and it's kind of a pesky problem, but with the rimfire rifles, I always make sure that I clean the mags maybe a week ahead of time, and as well as the gun, do a deep clean on everything. And then I'll shoot the gun, a couple 100 rounds. But I want to make sure after I take something apart that I always function test it and all that kind of jazz. And then because most matches, of course, are out of town, 2 days prior to the match, that's when I start the packing process. I'll go through and actually have a checklist, if you will, and I do it by gun to make sure that I don't get to New Smyrna Beach and I don't have some magazines for a gun that I'm shooting.
So,
but I start packing.
Like I experienced yesterday at our local USPSA match, as I pulled out my open gun and realized my ammo was on the counter at home.
Yeah, but I pack everything by gun. So when I'm staging everything to pack, I'm loading each gun ahead of time, not physically the gun itself,
right?
But
Loading the gun in the car.
Yeah, and it's all staged by the ammo, mags, gun, holster. If there's a holster, those types of things. It's all a process just to make sure that it's repeatable. And the same thing with the clothes. I start packing 2 days ahead of time. So the day ahead of time, the day prior to me leaving, everything's packed and ready to rock and roll. So I think those things are pretty important, but I think the shooting cadence is probably more what people are interested in. At least
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
For me, it's I have different modes for the different matches and the different practices and the different preparations, so standard practice mode is, I'm pushing myself. I'm trying to figure out where I can go faster. And if I go faster in certain areas, how consistent is that speed? I'm a man of many phrases, and one of the ones I've been using lately, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever use it, is you can't go fast until you go fast. And people look at me like, huh? But if you break it down, it makes sense. If you just consistently stay in your comfort zone, making sure you're going 1 for 1, but you're not pushing your speed, you're never going to get faster. I'm sure that when, you were on your road to the sub 60, you were probably shooting strings that had you hit consistently, you probably would have shot a sub 50.
Yeah, that's a true statement. Yep.
And that should, think about that, people. That means, over the course of 8 stages, he was probably shooting 10 seconds over. Well, let's just make it 8 seconds over. Okay. Well, you can do some simple math and go, well, that's just a second faster a stage. And yes, there are faster stages, and there are stages that aren't quite as fast, and ones where you can pick up more, but let's just average it as a second a stage. It's a quarter second a string. And you go, wow, it's just a quarter second a string. But when you're at Steve's level, even at my level, and quite frankly, even at the level you're at now, that's an eternity. That's an eternity.
Yeah.
And, and yes, it's simple math. You can sit there and go, well, there's 5 transitions, so that's only 0.05 seconds per transition. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Because there's some things that you're just not going to be, at some point you might be going as fast as you possibly can to get there, and you're not going to pick anything up, and you got to figure out other places where you're going to do it. And this is where, for those of you heard me mention it in a previous podcast, and go back, if you're on Facebook, search for Kenny Nag, look for his post when he shot 482, 43, 44, something like that on Showdown. But the interesting thing about it, and the thing that I actually posted and appreciated about that, was the fact that he posted his splits. He posted the practice score pad, and it showed the splits. And you get to see what his draw is, what he's shooting to each plate. And you can start comparing that. And that's how I have improved my shooting, is actually breaking down the splits and looking at it. Where can I pick up time, and how do I get over there? I mean, and I know I've mentioned this to many people and possibly on this podcast, but, third shot on accelerator, snapping over to the large plate number 4. That's a big transition, and you better get there. And if you don't, that's where you're probably losing a lot of time. But anyways, back to this. So you're prepping the van or your car, and you're getting everything there a couple days before. And, I'm able to do very similar things in that virtually everything except guns and ammo that I need for a match is in the shooting van already. I just have that advantage. Eyes, ears, magazines are either in a bag with a gun or in the van, rigs, and then of course the accoutrement of everything else with regards to, towels and, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the snacks and stuff like that.
Yes. You can't go anywhere without snacks. It's just
well,
very,
at some ranges though, I mean, at some level 2 matches, like your match as an example, Jeff, you got water in stages, you have lunch and so on and so forth. Other matches, will have snacks and those types of things, and your match had snacks as well. But not every match does that. So if you're shooting full sessions in a day, and the older I get, the less appealing that is to me. But it's important to stay hydrated, and it's important to keep the fuel in the body going. So that's an important thing. But one thing that I do want to touch back on, so it's one thing to talk about, hey, we're shooting, a couple days ahead of the match or up to a week ahead of the match, try to shoot every day and that kind of thing. But I think it's more important to talk a little bit more about what I'm focused on. I think that there are times, when, a year and a half ago or so, when I shot under 60 seconds, and my goal leading up to that, when I sat down with Chris, we were war game on what that looked like. We were actually looking stage by stage what kind of time that we needed to shoot and those types of things. And so there were certain stages that I shot plenty fast enough, but there are a couple of other stages, like outer limits and speed option. Even I would say pendulum and 5 to go, those 4 stages I had some room on. And so we would, really push those stages hard and try to figure out, how can I squeeze out that little extra. But the other stages, and I would say this is true leading up to a major match, I'm not trying to burn it down. I haven't looked at my, rimfire rifle open as an example. My peak time, it's probably in the low 50s, 52, 53, 54, somewhere in there. So I'm not expecting to go out and shoot, a 54 every time just because that's what my, my peak time is. Because there's a lot of people out there that, have as fast peak times or maybe even faster peak times and haven't broke 60 seconds yet.
Yep.
And so I think, and that's what I want to talk about, is it's more of, I want to make sure, because especially if you don't have the luxury of having a range close or something like that, or have access to a range, or, it's far away or something like that. What I'm spending my time at the range is I'm really getting back into the, being able to see the dot, see the plate, feel what that being in control and working on that edge and that targeted edge that I've talked about for the last couple of years, is to make sure that I'm building confidence in my shooting, that I can go out there to, smoke and hope and shoot a 620 on command. I mean,
yep.
Like it's the easiest thing that I've done all day. Because I think what happens, even to some of the best of us, including myself, I know this is a Dr. Phil moment, but is that sometimes when you get into a major match, you see the competition, whether it's, if you're a grandmaster, if you're a B-class shooter or whatever, you see other people, hey, you know what, I got to beat them. In order to beat that person, I need to, no. That's where you're thinking, that's a thinking error. You're going down the complete wrong path. It's, don't worry about them, just shoot your game and how well you can do it. And that's about staying in control.
Absolutely.
I will say, Jenna Larson did extremely well here the last week or 2 weeks. I think it was the Cornhusker Classic. She shot a 65, I think it was, when Rimfire Rifle Open. And the impressive part about that is, and it's, I talked to her dad, Paul, just a little bit about it. He's like, man, is she supposed to do that? So her classification time, Rimfire Rifle Open, was right at a 65. So it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more from her, but you don't see those anomalies happen that much, And Chris and I were talking about it here a couple of weeks ago. He shot, 55 or 56, and his peak time, I think maybe, or his classification time maybe in that 48, 49 range. It's like, how do you continue to get those numbers closer? Well, it comes with consistency of shooting, and so,
I'm glad you raised that, because I talk this to my students all the time. And, I've adopted a lot of what you've talked about where, that first string, you're looking to be, within 10 to 15% of your average string time.
Right.
You're not looking to burn it down. And I think a lot of people, let's just do a simple one. Let's say that, your average string time on roundabout is 2 seconds. Okay. If your first string is a 220, you're right where you need to be.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not going to feel that way because you're going to go, I'm 0.2 of a second. No, you're right where you need to be. And then you need to step it up.
And we've talked about it before though, but sometimes if you shoot that, 85% or whatever, and it feels chaotic and out of control, going faster is not going to make that situation better. I promise you that.
Absolutely. Well, again, here's the other thing. Again, knowing what your peak time is. Now, you're on your first string, and you go out there and you shoot a 180. Okay. Because your average of the best time you've ever shot on the stage is on a string average is 2 seconds. You're already 0.2 below that. Don't try to keep getting faster. Hold at that 180. Just keep doing what you're doing. And because the match is not the time to try to continually burn it down, because if you do that, is there a potential you could do great? Absolutely. But there's, I believe, more potential that you're going to crash. because if your average is 2 and you go 180 and then you start getting faster, and let's just say you get fortunate and you throw a 170, is a 160, which is now, 20 to what's that, 0.4, yeah, 20% faster, is that really consistently in your wheelhouse? I don't know.
And I think the other thing, Jeff, along those lines, that when I'm coaching folks or doing some training, I talk about it, and I find it more in shooters that I would say, from D class all the way up to even master, and people that are just becoming grandmasters. One of the phenomenons that happens is you get a good first run. There's a little guy on your shoulder, and you may not know that he exists, that says, "Hey, go faster." And, and so if you have that 225, and I'll tell somebody to shoot the same exact time, 99.99% that I've done this for a while, 99.99% of the people will shoot like a 215 or a 2 flat and think it's the same 225 that they first shot, because you have to fight that urge of, hey, watch this, I can go faster. And it happens in your subconscious. You don't know you're doing it. So I think it's a pretty eye-opening moment for a lot of people when we talk about that kind of thing. So I preach the level of control. And I'm not going to call anybody out, but there's an exceptional shooter out there right now that I'm not sure if they recently broke into the 50s or not, but has the potential to be in the low 50s because they shoot that fast. It's kind of reminiscent of Grant a couple of years ago, where Grant just kind of dialed in on his consistency. He was always a fast shooter, but you get that one good stage. Well, there's 7 more, and it's having that control. And if you're not feeling it, man, don't put the foot on the gas. And
Yep.
I'm not sitting here saying that, because I did it a couple of years ago at the World Speed Shoot and cost me a world title because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I made a calculated decision on the last stage, and I knew exactly where I was. Hey, I put my foot on the gas, thinking, the fastest time was going to be like a 63 and a half, and it was a 64 and a half. And I shot a 65 and a half because I pushed it on a couple of strings thinking I needed to shoot a 63 and a half. Whereas I would have, shot my 85% on the stage. I probably it would have been right about a 64. And it's like, really, people. So, but I'm not sitting here saying that it's important to be in a position to be able to make those decisions, not just let the match run you. You run the match. So.
Well, again, if you're an 80 shooter, okay, and you've been consistently shooting, in the low 80s, and you might even hit that, in the 80 point something, okay, just because you're going to a major doesn't mean suddenly you're a 75 shooter.
Right.
You may shoot that, and those anomalies happen, I'm a data nerd. I've looked at a lot of my matches, and I peak. A number of my guns I've peaked at Worlds. And part of that is a preparation. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's getting out there, and going. It's a different practice. I'm not pushing as hard. I'm practicing in kind of a match condition mode, where I'm keeping my speed up, but I'm not going crazy. I'm not trying to build anything. I'm trying to maintain.
Right. Yep.
I had a friend of mine who came back out and shot USPSA for the first time in 9 months last night. And he got most of his hits. I think he had a mic or two, but he was really slow. And, we were talking on the phone afterwards, and he said what I've said all along, this is a learned skill. It's a diminishable skill. And the same thing holds true for Steel Challenge. You see a lot of people that come back after, the ammo crisis or whatever, and they're just not able to shoot at the same level they were before consistently because they haven't continually kept doing it, and this is why, if you can get to matches, if you're fortunate enough to have a home range, because you're a multi-billionaire with goats, you got to get out there and you got to do the work, even if you can. I mean, there's been times, I drive 20 minutes to the range. It's a 20-minute setup. So it's 20 minutes home. So it's an hour spent just not shooting, and only spent an hour at the range just to get, a little prep time in behind each gun. And it might only be 50 rounds. It's also, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, is that I'm not banging out, a 200-300 round session on each gun. It's just staying relevant in the gun.
Yeah,
and that's what I found
100%.
works for me.
Yeah.
So this weekend is Area 6, getting ready for that. I was looking at the registrations. Doesn't look like you're going to be able to make it down here this weekend, eh?
Well, that's a great question. So I haven't really posted all this nonsense out on social media or anything like that, but I got COVID about 4.5 weeks ago, and man, I'm just not in the same, me and my oldest daughter, we've been working out a couple days a week with a personal trainer, losing some weight, building some muscle, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's getting my wind back, man. It's interesting. So I went back to working out last week, and man, it's like I haven't worked out at all,
Steve.
Yeah.
It's not like you haven't worked out at all. You haven't worked out at all. Okay.
Well, after having COVID, man, it's like I can't.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You're not going to be working out during that time.
Well, it's just, man, it's like you can't get a full breath. And so doing better. My wife's got pretty bad asthma, so she's not as good as what I'm doing right now. But, we've been doing better, and thankfully the kids are great and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, so we'll see. I'll probably make the call today. I really want to come down there and shoot because there's always great people. There's great people everywhere, but there's great people in Florida. I want to support Greg and those guys and Gorka and those guys. So I'll probably make the call today. If I'm feeling a little bit better, I'll sign up. If not, I may have to get you on the second time around. But excuse me. But I have committed to go shoot the Metal Madness match the following week in Kentucky.
Oh, okay. So I have not been able to shoot one of those yet. Have you ever shot it?
I have not, but there's no running and gunning, so that so that's a good thing. But yeah, it's Ed White and his wife Teresa, or as he calls her, Mrs. T. She I'm not sure how long Metal Madness has been around, maybe 10 years, somewhere in there. But they've got some affiliated ranges. I think there's 6 or 7 of them. They their last match was when was it? It was 6 months ago. So April, May, somewhere in there. No, maybe it was in May or June. Anyway, they had, I think, 450 guns at their match.
Wow.
And this match, when I was talking to Ed a couple of weeks ago, because I'm making the dog tags for the awards and stuff like that for them, I think they had 450 guns. He's thinking they could be well north of 500 guns, and there's a lot of people going to that match. So I'll be there with my daughter and that kind of thing, having a good time for the weekend. But I guess it's one of these deals where you're in a shooting house. I apologize because I've never shot it, but I've watched the videos online and whatnot. You've got, it kind of looks like 5-stand, if you will. So you got shooting positions in a house. You've got targets out in front of you, and they're painted in numbered order, and they tell you what number order to shoot the targets in. So there's 6 different divisions, if you will. There's an open pistol, an iron sight pistol, open rifle, iron sight pistol, or I think they call it a stock pistol. And then Jeff, they've got a revolver division. So they've got a revolver open, and this is all rimfire, by the way.
Right.
And then they've got an iron sight revolver. So Yeah, man, I got my 617s. I'm ready to rock and roll. I feel like a little kid, man. I'm ready to do some flanking with my 10 shooters, not my 6 shooters.
So
So
now is it still, because I've seen the layout. I've never watched a video, but I've seen the layout. So yeah, you're right. You're in kind of a shoot house, and it looks to be, multiple lanes. I think 4 or 5, maybe even 6 lanes with a steel set up. It's painted, it's numbered. Okay, you're going to be in
yep,
the red lane. I'm going to be in the blue lane. Okay, I see that the numbers are. It's not just regular. I'm going to go back to front, and I got to shoot in the middle to do it in order. So the RO's got to pay attention to that. But is it you against me, or is it still me against the time?
I think it's you against the time, and so it's not a head to head thing. It's you, and I think again, I haven't shot it yet, but I'll know a lot more after next
Right.
weekend. But I think there's one RO. Let's for the sake of discussion say there's 5 shooters there. The RO goes to shooter number 1, runs them, tells them what their order is. Are you ready? Stand by, beep, and all that kind of stuff. And then they go to the next person, next person, next person, next person. And so you shoot them all, in order, kind of like shooting trap, if you will.
Right. And then they go reset the stage.
Yeah. And I think, and that's kind of what I want to get my arms wrapped around is I think that the plates are hanging and I don't think there's any resetting. So
okay, they just need to be repainted. I'm assuming.
Well, that's kind of,
or I mean, maybe not. I don't know. This,
what? That's what I would get my eyes on, Jeff.
This is what, 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, week and a half. Yeah.
So in a couple podcasts, we'll be looking for a report on just the mechanics of Metal Madness, and then how you like shooting it.
Yeah, and I think what is appealing is I don't think there's any. I don't think the targets are overly difficult. I don't know how far they go out. I'm guessing 15 to 20 yards, but I'll have all those specifics. But the part that appeals to me is, and why I want to support that match is it's meant for all ages and all shooters. I think at their last match they had 18 or 19 junior shooters at the match. There was a picture out on their social media page where all the junior shooters that competed that weekend, and there was a lot of kids there, which I think is just so cool. And you had differently abled folks that could shoot that match, because there's no running, gunning, and it's all 22 and all that kind of jazz. I know that Ed was up at SASP at the Nationals, so he had his mobile trailer up there, and they had their setup up there. And I've heard a lot of people that aren't in Kentucky talking about it because they shot it or had an opportunity to try it up at the SASP Nationals. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. So it's somewhere in Kentucky. I got to make my hotel reservations today, but no, I'm looking forward to it. But I like the appeal to more of the entry level shooters, and it's just kind of like a backyard game, kind of having fun, and it's serious. I mean, there's 6 divisions. I think there's 6 different placements. Whether it's master or expert, they have their own ranking, so it's not like a D through GM classification.
Yeah, but they conceptually have put something together so you can.
Oh yeah. There's a subscription, a membership. So your times are tracked and you're classified and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, I'm looking here at a picture of a layout, and I'm getting a better understanding now. So, really, what they've got is they've got the lanes. Different lanes are colored, okay,
yep.
And they're in somewhat of a triangular layout. So the lane on the end is on the say the right side is kind of that or on the left side is like that left side of a triangle, okay.
Yep.
And then you move in, so the lane in the middle, dead center, you're just shooting straight down instead of shooting back at an angle. And then it looks like so each lane is colored, and it looks like there's 4 lanes or 4 rows, 4 rows, and you can hang up to 2 targets per row. So it looks like this is set up to be, you could possibly shoot up to 8 targets in a string. And so what I'm guessing, and again, this is going to be very interesting to hear back from you, is that, your first time up, you're going to shoot I'm going to shoot the blue lane, but you're going to shoot the white lane, and Timmy's going to shoot the red lane. And then we get up again when it's our turn, and we're switching lanes. So everybody shoots again the same. They shoot the lanes. They're going to shoot the same thing. And you're absolutely right. Looking at this, the targets don't get painted. They're white. They've got numbers on them. And so, yeah, there isn't even and they're hanging. There isn't a reset. Doesn't even look like there's a repaint, because you wouldn't want to paint over the numbers. Yeah, I'm very interested. I love the idea. I shot my first Rimfire challenge match a couple of weeks ago. It's not very, it's not very big down here in Florida. They had a match up in Hernando. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was challenging. I like the concept that you've got to be good in both the rifle and the pistol to do well in the match. You can't just be focused on one of them. So hopefully I'll be able to get back there and shoot it again, and possibly, find others that I can go shoot, because I enjoyed it. I mean, my heart is still in Steel Challenge, but I'm not adverse to trying other things and seeing what they're like you're doing with Metal Madness.
Yeah, I think Rimfire Challenge is it's a great concept because of the varying target presentation. And I was talking to somebody recently about improvements to Steel Challenge, and that's another podcast by itself.
Yep.
But people are talking about, well, you need more stages in Steel Challenge. And, nah, you really don't.
Nope.
It's but what I found though is that the best Steel Challenge shooters in the world are also the best Rimfire Challenge shooters in the world. It's not a coincidence.
Right.
And some of the best Rimfire Challenge shooters in the world are the best SASP shooters in the world. And so, it's whatever you like. But the good part about Rimfire Challenge is the varying target presentations. The part, Jeff, that I absolutely hate about Rimfire Challenge is, man, I'm not sure what to do after 5 shots. Oh, there's a couple more plates I need to engage. So I say that.
The very first time, the very first string, I get up to this, and I'm shooting pistol first, and I get up to the stage, and I'm like, okay, 7 targets. Looking at the present. Okay, I'm going to shoot it this way. Great. Make ready. Great. Just threw a mag in, racked it. No Barney. And I missed 3 times and got to the stop plate, and it went click. And I went, oh, okay. So this game, that's right. I can't miss as much because I'm not going to have as much ammo. So, yeah, I had fun. It's good. And, I'm glad you mentioned something about this, because with regards to, Rimfire Challenge shooters and Steel Challenge shooters and SASP shooters. And I hear a lot of people say, well, Steel Challenge shooters are that fast because of the muscle memory. And I don't buy it.
No, I agree 100%.
It's to me, it's more about the techniques you're using to shoot the stage. And, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. And, when you shot at the time, the world record for Smoke and Hope and Rimfire Rifle Open.
Yep.
Which was, if I'm not mistaken, a 596.
Yeah, somewhere. Okay.
There. We talked about it afterwards, and you told me you saw the dot on every plate.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I've been working with my students, and, especially on Smoke and Hope, people are like, oh, I just got to have white in the reticle and I'm going to pull the trigger. And I'm like, if that's what you feel is the best thing to do, after you realize it's not, let's talk about the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
And so I had one of my students, how do I get faster? What am I going to do? And I said, just see the dot. Start off by just seeing the dot, and then move faster, still seeing the dot. Now, yeah, that's easy. How do you shoot faster? Well, go faster. Well, you got to learn how to go faster. And, Smoke and Hope is a classic one. And so are the other stages, but it's super apparent in Smoke and Hope. And this is something I don't think we've ever talked about. And it's why Kenny Nagg's practice score post. And, I've watched other people. And if you go to the World Speed Shooting Championships last year, and you have practice score competitor, you can download that. The AMG Labs timer was used on every stage. So you could actually go look at, what was Steve Foster's draw on 5 to go for the 5 strings. Okay. And that's huge. But the reason I bring up specifically the draw, or, for maybe lack of a better term, I like to use the word draw regardless of the gun, but the first shot, because you're really not drawing on the low ready guns, but your time to your first shot really helps you understand what your reaction time is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that while you can be fast on the course of fire, that's just as important to be focused and waiting for that beep. And as soon as you hear the first sound of that beep, you're moving.
For sure.
What was Kenny? I think Kenny's draws on Smoke and Hope are like in the low 0.4s.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually shared this with him, is that his first shots are not as fast as other people's first shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, man, your first shot's not as fast as this old fat guy. But his transition and his splits are just on fire. And so, yeah, you know what? Get your good first shot and let it rip, man. Man,
it's interesting too, because, one of the things that I tell a lot of people is, because everyone's like, oh, what's your draw? What's your draw? What's your draw? It's like, yeah, the draw is important, and a fast draw can really help you, but it's how fast you get to the last plate, not how fast you get to the first plate.
Yeah, that's true.
And it might be for Kenny, and maybe we're going to have to get him on the podcast. I'm asking this question, where for him that draw is at that speed because that's how he's guaranteed to acquire the dot on the first plate. And then once he's got that, he's very comfortable transitioning as fast as he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got his number. Let's work on getting Kenny on here and beat up on the punk. I think he's one of those kids where no, wait.
I think
it's okay. That's even better.
It's 4 o'clock. It's time.
That's perfect. It's perfect for me. This is another one of those kids that, you multiply his age by 4 and I'm still older.
Hey, check this out, Jeff. You were talking about the AMG Lab timer.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you what I did last week, did I?
What'd you do?
I'm embarrassed to say this. So we've had a lot of rain and storms and what have you in Georgia for the last, well, not for the last couple of days, but the week prior. Oh my goodness, it was pretty bad. Oh yeah, so me being a knucklehead, I was doing some training with somebody, and somehow I left my AMG Labs timer out on the range. So it went
to go swimming.
Not quite a full week in the rain, but it was pretty close. So yeah, I took the batteries out and all that kind of jazz, and let her dry out so there wasn't any water in the screen anymore. And Alex doesn't recommend this, but it actually works right now. I'm like, holy cow. So I'm going to send it back to him just to have him go through it and make sure that, it's
Well,
not
he's
gonna...
probably gonna put that on his wall as a testament to the fact that the power of staying in the rain for a week and it still works.
Oh yeah, and sun and oh yeah, it's crazy.
Alex is a great dude. He's put out a great product. And I couldn't be happier with using it. It's just, you look at a lot of other timers, and yeah, they had splits, and you could look at them, but the ease of use, and of course the integration with Practice Score, and
priceless.
if you've got an iPad, an Android, an iPhone, any of those smart devices, you can go to the Google store, you can go to iTunes and get Practice Score, the app, for free.
Yeah.
And hook it in to your timer. And the beautiful thing about that timer is you can look at the last 3 strings and all the splits of your last 3 strings. But if you actually hook it up with Practice Score, you can get it to record everything.
Yeah.
And there's another app, and I am not a paid sponsor. This is not anything like that. Eugene, who is the creator of Practice Score Competitor, has another app out there where Practice Score, the app, is going to record just 5 strings because it's set up for a match. His app, and it's something like Practice Score Trainer or something of that nature. You can find it on the stores. Will record ad infinitum number of strings and the splits. So you could go back and look at it, and if you're shooting, say, a 5-string session or a 10-string session, and you're like, well, man, how did my 3rd string compare to my 7th string? That app can provide that to you, because you're going to have that. You're not going to be able to go back as far, of course, in the actual timer. It's only storing 3 strings.
Right.
So,
right.
Just a little info for people that are out there. If you've never thought about it or said, wow, I really need an app. Well, rule of thumb is if you've come up with an app, there's probably, or an idea, there's probably an app for that. So
Sure.
All right, my friend. Well, it's time for my second cup of coffee in the morning. This has been great. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, tongue in cheek, but yeah, if you have ideas, throw them on the podcast page. We'd love to hear what you'd like to listen, what you'd like to have us talk about. Steve and I are always trying to come up with good ideas, but we're happy to try to, serve the community and what they're looking for. Steve, any final remarks?
No, just good luck this weekend, Jeff. And
thank you, my friend.
Look forward to talking next week about a recap and how the match is. I think the last time I shot that Area 6 match was maybe 18. I'm not sure. Maybe they had it in 19, but I didn't attend last 2 years. But I've heard there's been a ton of improvements to the range, and that's why I was disappointed that I may not be able to go this weekend. But I think the Florida State match is going to be there in a couple months as well.
Yeah, this Florida State. So this is the first weekend of October for Area 6, and the first weekend of December is going to be the state match.
Awesome.
Awesome. It's going to be great. And there is another major nestled in between those, which some good friends of ours up in Holt, Florida, which is up in the Panhandle. They are calling it the All 8 Steel Challenge. That's on Practice Score. So if that's going to be the first weekend in November, I believe. I'm not 100% sure of the dates, but go check that out on Practice Score. And then, then we start 2022. And, I'm pretty sure Jamie's going to have his match up in Georgia.
It's already on the schedule.
Absolutely. Oh, is it there? Great.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
The West Florida match is moved to April. which is going to be 2 weeks before, I believe, the World Speed Shoot.
And then Area 4, maybe right after the World Speed Shoot, I think, somewhere in that timing.
Yeah. Hopefully we're going to get back to normal where there's, it's going to be, you can almost find a major every weekend. It was getting that way a couple of years ago, and I hope we get back to that. And, it's a fun sport. I love it.
Yep.
I love the people. I love shooting it. And, for anybody that's out there that hasn't met me, please, or Steve, I think you're not going to find two more approachable people that'll sit there. Steve will shake your hand, and so will I. I'll probably talk your ear off, and you'll probably go, why did I ever talk to that old guy? He just talks too much.
For sure. All right, Jeff, good talking to you today.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.